The following podcast contains some funny shit that ain't suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised, y'all.
Meet Trae Crowder.
The most of the hate that I've got has come from two very distinct groups of people, and they're polar opposites, right? The first group is the more stereotypical hick redneck guys, and the second group is like ultra-liberal Portland baristas.
In case you don't already know him, he's an author and a comedian.
Because, dude, like, growing up, fucking rednecks and cops were like natural enemies, dude. They did not get along at all. You know what I mean? Like, I spent my whole life surrounded by rednecks growing up. I've never once seen them react positively to a sudden police presence. But now today you've got rednecks unironically being like, two things I care about: Back in the Blue and outlaw country music. Fucking what? The most popular redneck show in the history of television was literally just about two cousin fucking good old boys running from the law in a sweet-ass orange car, right?
He's also a big-time social media influencer.
Okay, well, I thought 2026 would be wild, but I didn't know it would be this wild, this fast. Like, January ain't even halfway over. We ain't even made it to the Ides yet, y'all, and already so much crazy shit's happened, it's hard to keep track. ICE executed Renee Good in the street, and the best argument they could come up with was basically, listen, generally you shouldn't murder people, but in our defense, she was a mouthy lesbian with a ton of bumper stickers, so what else were we supposed to do?
As an artist, formerly known as the liberal redneck, Trae has been using his voice, and especially his accent, to shine a light on political and social issues.
Because last week they genuinely convinced themselves that Trump was never actually a predator. No. You see, he was in fact the whole time actually an undercover elite asset working with the FBI to bring Jeffrey Epstein to justice once and for all. Right.
In the age of MAGA, so many people have found his presence refreshing, breaking stereotypes and finding a way to make us laugh in these dark times.
Maybe 15 years from now, teenage boys in my hometown might see some shit on Twitter or wherever about how transgender people aren't fit to serve this country and say, I don't know, man, that sounds like some papaw shit to me, dude. I don't like...
Pour yourself a drink, because we're going there. Taboo topics are back on the table.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another Season 3 episode of the Going There podcast. We are coming to you from Burbank, California, which is normally really sunny, and today it's a little foggy, even a little rainy. But we're at Everything Studios with our friends here, and we have a man who has brought me so much catharsis during the Trump years, and especially during COVID, the liberal redneck, as they call him, Mr. Trae Crowder.
Hello, yeah, glad to be here. I mean, I'm not far from home, or where what I call home now for me. So, wasn't too big of a haul to get here today, but I'm glad to have done it.
We really appreciate it because we know you were just on the road. You've been touring and going everywhere. It sounds like every week you're heading somewhere, right?
It's pretty. I'd say if you average it out, it's like probably 2.7 weekends a month or something. Like not every other week, but not literally every week either. Yeah. Like get a weekend off a month or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's not like a band either. I don't go out and stay gone for weeks. I leave on like Thursday or Friday. I come back on like Sunday or Monday, even the weeks that I'm gone. So it's not that bad.
Do you travel with any, like your family or friends, or is it just
no? I mean, my sons are teenagers now. They're 13 and 14. So like, they got school, they got finals, they got whatever. They can't just up and go with me to Dayton as much as they'd love to, so no, not really. And my wife has, does stuff with them. So I think when they're off in college and stuff, if I'm going to like fun places, my wife might like Dayton. My wife might come with me. My wife might come with me in the future. But for now, no, I'm pretty much, well, I say solo. I mean, I usually have a comedian that I know who is opening for me that weekend, and sure, I meet them there, and we hang out that weekend and whatnot.
Did you ever used to travel with like a posse, like the Dane Cook? You remember back in the day?
Kind of, but not really. When I first started touring in 2016, when I first like got a following from the liberal redneck videos you mentioned, that I toured initially with 2 other guys full time as a branded thing called the Well Red Comedy Tour, and we had a podcast together called the Well Red, like Well RED, like Well Redneck or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were 2 old friends of mine who I had known from doing stand up in Tennessee. They're both very funny guys, and so we co-hosted a podcast together and we toured together up until after COVID. 2022, I think, is when we all like went solo. We're still good friends and we still host that podcast. Nothing happened. It's just we tour on our own now.
Yeah, you have so much going on.
Yeah.
So let's just say this. I think most of the people who are listeners of our show are going to know who you are because the algorithm, if nothing else,
Sure.
you know, we've followed you for a while. I think the same kind of brand of like political, social awareness plus comedy. For the people who don't know you, what's your elevator pitch on who you are, what your brand is?
Initially, when I started out, I would have said that it was more of a Southern fried kind of intellectual thing. I'm not like an actual intellectual, but I'm an intellectual by Clay County, Tennessee standards. But so, which is to say, like, I'll watch foreign films and be okay with it.
Don't you have an MBA?
Yeah, I do.
So,
yeah,
I mean,
but I don't, I don't.
And you have a bachelor's in psychology.
Yeah, that's all true. But I can't talk to you in depth about like, Nietzsche and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of what makes you an intellectual. In my opinion, a true intellectual is not somebody who tries to like boast their intelligence and speak outside of school. Like, I see what you're saying. Trust me, I get it. But you are definitely intellectual.
Basically, the thing that I thought about, and again, not in a contrived way, just in a self-awareness way, was that like, I don't talk the way that I sound. Like, I'm from a very rural part of Tennessee. I have a thick Southern accent, but I don't fit a lot of the stereotypes that I know people have about people from those places who sound the way that I do. And I was very hyper aware of that. That included being like okay with gay people and anti-racist and stuff, but that was just like part of it. I didn't consider myself explicitly a political comedian or whatever at that time, but I did a bit that I called the liberal redneck bit, and which became those videos, and I became known for like political comedy specifically. So the simplest way to describe it is literally just that title. I mean, liberal redneck, I feel like gets it across pretty well, although I've actually taken that out of most of my social medias now and whatever, which is funny because I was telling a guy that, and he was like, yeah, you just got too uncomfortable with the word redneck. And I was like, no, it was the word liberal. Is the reason I took it out.
That is so true, because I feel like you go far enough left anymore, you meet the far right sometimes with like, I know the people who were like part of the hippie movement and anti-vax, and like they meet Maha there. And sometimes the word liberal, I don't like to use those definitions either, because it could mean 100 different things to 100 different people.
Well, see, because where I'm from and everything, they were all like interchangeable, like left, liberal, progressive, whatever. And those words all have actual definitions, but they were never used that way.
Yeah.
Where I was at, or in my head, it just, you were either like right, left, or center. And if you're on the left, then you were a liberal, you were a progressive, you were whatever. And people didn't make those distinctions. But now, like you said, it could all mean 100 different things. And I think that I don't know. I just think that like, basically, I just think, I just try to live by the golden rule and try to put yourself in other people's shoes, treat people the way you want to be treated, and mind your own business. And other than that, we should have a strong social safety net if we're going to proclaim to be the best country in the world. And that's pretty much what my politics are like, period, like all told. Really.
That used to just be considered moderate.
Like being like a common sense person. Yeah, I know.
And
that's the way I look at it.
Now it's seen as like an extreme view as we're witnessing. Like you, I didn't grow up quite as in a red area. Ohio's been pretty red for a while. We're purplish at times, but like you and I could go, if people didn't know who you were, you and I could go to a MAGA rally we would fit in.
Yeah.
And that's a double-edged sword, right? Because you, I'm sure, have heard some shit, which is part of your learning process because they assume you're safe. I can be
yeah.
racist around this guy.
The guys I mentioned, Corey and Drew, that do Well Read with me, we did some sketches for Comedy Central a few years ago, and like Comedy Central Digital. And one of those sketches, the premise of it was how if people in a bar would hear our accent and go into racist mode because they were like, this guy gets it, or this guy's on board. And that happens all the time. So yeah, living out here, living in LA, like someone hears my accent, asks where I'm from, I say Tennessee. If they respond to that super positively and like, especially if they're like, we would love to move to Tennessee. We're looking to tons of people out here moving to Tennessee right now. And like, usually if that happens, I know that some right wing stuff is coming down the pike right after that.
Yeah.
If I don't pivot to talking about the Dodgers or something to try to avoid it.
You could tell me if your experience is different. They usually test the waters first. They're like, well, we need more people like us to move there, right?
Yes. Or it'll be like, dying to move there. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's just, man, all this crime out here and, that, or the taxes, whatever, which the taxes are insane. Don't get me wrong, but they start with stuff like you said, putting like the feelers out or whatever. Or sometimes it's just full blown, like a lady in a bar in Denver, which is like, ever since Black Lives Matter became a thing, this city's gone to shit,
Oh God.
It's like the guy they're always around with their signs. I don't know. So you never know.
I've heard it all too through my whole life. But I've changed a lot, especially in my adult life. And I think, the more you're around people not like you, being out in LA, it's impossible not to be aware of this stuff. So did you grow up in a family that leaned a little more left?
Yeah, kind of, which I know is unusual. Like I kind of feel bad about this pretty often because I would say maybe the most common question I get from like fans of mine, and especially around the holidays, is like, and especially increasingly lately, is like, man, what do you do to like deal with your super mega family members, or that type of thing? And,
Right.
And like, I get that question all the time. And like I said, I kind of feel guilty because like, I don't have that, which I know is super weird. Cause like I've got a buddy, like a old comedy friend who lives in Minneapolis. And his whole family is super MAGA, I guess because he's a white guy and they were like upper middle class. So like, that's a very common experience. And I'm unusual in that because also the two guys I mentioned, Corey and Drew, my wife and most of the other people I know who are like me, liberal rednecks or whatever, most of them are like the blue sheep of their family is what I call it.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I was raised by a single father, and my dad's only sibling as my uncle Tim, who is gay. And my dad had known that his brother was gay since they were like teenagers or whatever. And he still like loved and supported him and stuff. And I think maybe because of having a gay brother, or maybe just because he thought it was bullshit or both, my dad didn't go to church, which means he didn't make us go to church when we were kids. Me and my sister go to church when we were kids, which was unusual in the rural South. So I didn't have that whole Southern Baptist thing. My dad was very open-minded. But on top of that, my family was like a family of like lifelong like Southern Democrats. And like, so my grandpa, when I say Southern Democrat, that means what you think it means, which is to say, yeah, he was still racist, like he was, but my dad was a more like, had been a Southern Democrat who had like evolved, but the whole family, they voted for Clinton and everything. And, my dad died in 2013, but he would have absolutely, I know that he hated Donald Trump because he hated him as a rich douchebag reality star,
Right.
which most people did in my hometown at that time, by the way. But anyway, so yeah, and my dad, he ran the video store in my hometown. I mentioned foreign films earlier. My dad liked like David Bowie and David Lynch movies and like shit like that. So I grew up in a very different kind of like household and environment than most people in a place like Salina, Tennessee, which is my hometown,
I'm very jealous because I had a good life, and I know one of the things that you've said in other interviews is part of what keeps you on, the politics and your basic philosophy is growing up in a rural town where there was like abject like poverty.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We didn't get into all that yet, but yeah.
Yeah. So, That's great. I, on the other hand, grew up with a lot more privilege than I ever realized. So, like, I am one of the people who became woke and became the blue sheep, and definitely gonna use that term from now on, because I tell people I'm the middle of five, and there's not hate there, but there's definitely like, what happened to you?
Mhm.
They assumed that the liberals at college scrambled my brains.
Of course, yeah.
But I said, no, I became a lot more liberal after college as I'm watching the world fall apart. And I'd made friends with people who don't look and sound just like me. And that is what opened my eyes. But sounds like you've always kind of been that way. You were born into it. It sounds like your dad was actually pretty enlightened for where he was,
for
place
that
and time.
place and time. He absolutely was, yes. And yeah, like you said, yeah, my hometown also, the factory left after NAFTA in the 90s, and all the other businesses closed down, and also the opioid, like Oxycontin, showed up at the same time. You know, jobs left, pills showed up same exact time, just like devastating. I mean, again, you're from Ohio, you definitely know something about all that.
Or the Rust
but
Belt,
just devastated my hometown, and I mean, to this day, it's never recovered. I felt my hometown is like, in terms of aesthetics, topography, vistas, whatever. There's a lake there and everything. It's very beautiful, but it's like economically and everything. I think it's one of the bleakest places you can go.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like small town USA. Like, you go there and you're like,
It's not Mayberry.
no, not at all. It's not dangerous or anything. It's just sad. Like, it's not doing well.
I mean,
it hasn't been for a long time, and there's no like hope really either.
Yeah.
Like, it's just
So
nothing.
were you a black sheep or a blue sheep in the town?
Oh yeah, very much. But again, mostly just because. Well, no, I mean, I remember I've told this story a bunch, but one thing I always remember is I was in high school when we went to war in Iraq, right? So after Afghanistan and everything, which everybody was fully on board with because of 9/11. But then Iraq comes up, and the weapons of mass destruction talk and all that shit was happening. And we had my English class turned into a debate class once a month because they didn't have they couldn't do a full-time debate class or debate team.
Yeah.
But so English class, the third Friday of every month, was today's debate class. And she was like, all right, everybody in here who thinks we should go to war in Iraq, raise your hand. And like half the kids raised their hand. And she was like, all right, everybody who thinks we shouldn't go to war in Iraq, raise your hand. And I raised my hand, and I was literally the only one. And she was like, all right. And now everybody who doesn't have an opinion one way or the other, and everybody else raised their hand. And she was like, okay, you're on Trae's team. All right, you guys get over here. And so I just argued against, the other half of the class about that, like, even then. But before that, it was just, I had a gay uncle. Everybody knew that. So I was like not homophobic, but also I wasn't religious, and I was openly like, dubious of religion and church and stuff, which was like weird, obviously. And then like, I remember one time a bunch of my redneck buddies were coming to meet me at my house. We were going to go ride around town because that's the only thing to do. And they walk in there, and I was watching, Eddie Izzard's comedy special, Dressed to Kill. Eddie Izzard referred to himself at the time as a executive transvestite comedian. It's a cross-dressing British guy who was super highbrow and intellectual. One of my absolute all-time favorites. And, my redneck buddies walk in there, and it's a British dude in a dress. And so they're like, what the fuck? They're just like, what are you doing? And I was like, just stop and listen to it for a minute, which, they wouldn't. So shit like that. But I don't want that to be misconstrued as me being like an outsider, though. I actually did pretty fine socially because I didn't, I don't know. I just the quarterback on the football team copied off my math homework for 12 years or whatever, that type of thing. And I was funny. So
that's a get out of jail free card for a lot of things.
I was funny, and shit was bad for everyone. And so I was well liked, which is part of the reason why when I'm such a pariah now to so many people that I grew up with, which is true because of everything that's happened and how much more divided everything's gotten. That's part of the reason I get very defensive about that, because I'm like, y'all, I've literally always been this guy. And you used to, when we were kids, and ever since then, it was always just like, oh, that's just Trae being Trae type of thing. Like, you didn't care. But now you care. And I don't get why, because I haven't changed. So anyway.
Okay. Bobby, you're here to witness this. I love that he just said that, because one of the biggest issues that I've had over the last, well, let's say in the whole Trump era for the last 10 years is so many people are like, you change, man.
No.
And I'm like, sure, I've evolved. We're supposed to, but I'm the same guy. We used to agree on where the line was.
Right.
Like, you've gotten just deeper into the cult. And so did you move to LA after your book and after you started getting big, or were you already out here?
Just barely after, but yes, after. Like that, me going viral in the book and the TV deal and stuff was the impetus for me finally moving here. But I had been looking for pay the bills, like day jobs in Los Angeles for like a year at that point anyway. Like our plan,
Yeah.
we were actively trying to move here already, but I was married, I had 2 kids. I couldn't just like pack up everything and get a bus ticket. So I was trying to make it work, and then I went viral, and that allowed me to make it happen.
So at the time, right before the transition, you're in Tennessee, you're around all these people, and you make it big, but you make it big really by, shining a light on some of the nonsense going on and using your voice, which people are, like you said, automatically going to assume, oh, this guy's racist like me. This guy doesn't give a shit about immigrants. Like, did you find yourself immediately becoming alienated, or was it more of a slow drip over the years?
Not by everybody, but by some people, yes. I remember pretty quickly after it happened, I went to, I think it was a Sturgill Simpson concert in Knoxville, which is where I lived at the time, and I had a bunch of my buddies from my hometown, because I'm from a small town, so they have to drive up to Knoxville or Nashville or whatever to go to a concert. So a bunch of guys that I had grown up with came up there to go to Sturgill Simpson, and I met up with a bunch of them, and it was like nothing had ever changed. But like then this one guy who I'd known and partied with for like years, like literally wouldn't speak to me or shake my hand or acknowledge my existence or anything. We were both there as part of the same group, but I like went up to him and was like, "What's up, buddy?" Because again, I went to Bonnaroo with this guy, whatever. And he just he literally just silent treatment, like acted like I didn't exist. And that was the first time that happened. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. And then, similar things happened since.
That's a gut punch. That sucks.
Yeah, no, it does suck. I mean, that guy's kind of a sauced up dipshit, but yeah.
Still, it because at least from my point of view, you don't present as all of you people who don't think like me, go fuck yourselves. You're very much like me in the sense that you're like, look, I don't hate you if you don't agree with me.
Right.
But I do think that the people at the top are the ones that hold the power and need to be held accountable. And I very much dislike them. You, I kind of feel bad for, because you're being lied to as well. You just don't see it.
Right.
And but there isn't this vitriol and hate towards the masses. It's really, you guys need to wake the fuck up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I do make fun of them sometimes.
Absolutely.
It's in a ball busting way, which my position on that has always been, I'll laugh if you make fun of fucking woke snowflake coastal libtards or whatever, if it's actually funny, if they do some ridiculous, overly woke performative bullshit and you make a joke about it, and I'll laugh at it. I'm not going to take it personally. Like, I'm a comedian. Like, you're being kind of a thin-skinned pussy if you're fucking getting this upset about me busting your balls or making fun of you a little bit. Shouldn't you, I have a First Amendment right to do that. Fucking, I thought you couldn't joke about anything anymore. Isn't that what you always say? But if I joke about y'all, no, you won't have that.
You didn't realize it was one-sided?
Right.
Like when the libtards started showing up with guns recently, and they're like, no, well, you're not allowed to do this.
Right.
Suddenly you're realizing it's not so much the Second Amendment that they support.
No.
It's just for them. Free speech, First and Second Amendment is for them.
Yes. It's like, there's that, you probably know, I don't remember who the quote's attributed to. I just see it on the internet pop up sometimes. And it's like one of the central tenets of modern conservatism is that there must be an in group that the law protects but does not bind, coupled with an out group that the law binds but does not protect, right? And if you're in that first group, then that's what the expectation is. Just put more simply, rules for thee, not for me, or whatever. But that's pretty defining tenets for them.
You just said earlier that you're not you don't consider yourself an intellectual. But at least let me brag for you and say, I think you make information funny and palatable, and you don't have to have the highest vocabulary to get it, but your wit and the wording that you come up with is fantastic. So I was showing Bobby who we're going to be interviewing today, and I said, I'm just going to pull up a random clip. You were talking about the story of a young woman who was denied an abortion in Texas, a necessary abortion, and you referred to it as Saudi Arabia. I like, we lost it, and that was like 5 seconds in, and then you went on to explain all of the ins and outs and apologize to Saudi Arabia for possibly offending them by comparing them to Texas. It was hilarious, and it was informative, and it was witty as hell. Saudi Arabia, that wordplay was, I mean, it was fucking brilliant. And that's just one thing that you post, where you post all the time. Like,
Yeah.
Are these things that you find or spur of the moment? Like, I just need to say something. I'm sure some of it just comes to you live, or is it something where you're like, I want to be careful about what I put out there? Like, how's that process work?
It's sort of a mixture of, kind of, in that I've determined in my head, and sometimes it's super obvious what I'm going to talk about. And then I just start talking about it, but not with the camera on, right? So I'm like talking to myself. But I have an office where I like write and do podcasts and whatever. So I'll sit out there, and I just start doing it as though I'm sitting in the car doing it, but I'm not taping that or anything. And then I just do it and do it. I'll cut parts out and then keep parts in, and I just kind of mold it that way until it's like a version of it that I'm like, okay, I think that's it or close to it. And then I'll go out to the Jeep and turn the camera on and then do it pretty much. That's also how I do stand-up. I do that way because that's how I've always written stand-up material too. I'll have an idea for a bit, and then when I know I'm gonna try it on stage soon. Like if I'm on the road and I'm like, I'm gonna try this new thing this night based on something that happened, I'll like pace around my hotel room like I'm on stage. Sure. And I might not be full on performing it, but I'm, like, oh yeah, did you see what happened? Like, again, I would look like a crazy person if you just saw me doing it without knowing what I was doing. But that's always been like what my process is. So that's what I do with those videos too, pretty much.
That makes sense because, it might be funny up here, but as soon as you start saying, you're like, oh, that doesn't really play out as smooth, or
it doesn't flow.
It doesn't connect.
Right.
Does any of your stand-up, is there any like synergy between your stand-up and your like online clips? Do you find any of these jokes starting here with the topical things that bleed into a bit on stage, or is it all totally separate for you?
Usually it's totally separate. I almost view them as almost two different things or two different outlets because like the problem with writing topical stand-up bits is that they don't have a shelf life.
They're funny that week.
Yeah, right. So, but when you make when that's your thing as a video series, is you make topical like comedic rant videos. So I can just have an outlet for that, and the fact that it goes away is fine. Whereas if I was writing that in stand-up form every week and having to get rid, and some of those bits like work great, but now I got to get rid of them because they're dated already. Like that would just really annoy me. So so I don't do that. But every now and then there'll be something that goes from one to the other. I'm trying to think of a recent example, and sometimes there'll be like one thing from like a video where I'm like, maybe I didn't have time for it because, I try to keep those under 3 minutes because of the various social platforms, time restraints that they have. And so maybe sometimes there's another idea I didn't get to or whatever, and I might try to turn that into something on stage, at least for that weekend, just because I have it and I don't want to throw it away.
Gotcha.
But that's about it. But that is the main problem with that, though, is because oftentimes I've thought it would be good to at least do some more evergreen, like online videos. They'd have more staying, because the same applies there. You can do that on the internet, but they'd have more staying power if they're evergreen. But anytime I come up with an actual good concept or premise for like what would be an evergreen internet video, I'm like, nah, I'm gonna do that on
stage. Save it for the stage.
Exactly.
That makes more sense.
So that's kind of what ends up happening. So they are connected in that way.
Yeah. Okay. So stand up aside for a second. The online stuff, this probably changes and is a mixture on the spectrum throughout. Do you find that you do it more because you feel like, that's your outlet for catharsis of like, holy shit, this insane stuff is happening. I can't just sit on it. I feel like I need to put it out there. And also it gives me a voice and I can use comedy? Or does it feel more like it's like, okay, I need to continually push this out there. Does it feel like more work or does it feel like more release?
I mean, the honest answer is it depends. It depends on what the subject matter is and what's
Yeah.
going on. At this point, I try to do them weekly. And yeah, that makes it feel like work sometimes, depending on what's going on in the world. Some things, though, it's like, oh, I enjoy it, comes to me quickly. I barely even have to think about it. I have fun doing it. Like that does still happen. So it kind of just depends on what's going on. But again, I know this is weird, but like now, like it seems weird, but to sort of go back to something I was alluding to earlier, when I first started doing these in 2016, 10 years ago, I know it sounds this was Barack Obama was still the president. This was early 2016.
Oh God, don't let us fantasize about the good old days.
This was the very beginning of people starting to take Donald Trump seriously as like a political thing.
You're right.
So like at this point in time, like I said, I had a stand-up bit that I would do that in my notes, like in my set list, that bit was called the liberal redneck bit. And literally the setup for it was everybody hears my accent and automatically assumes I'm some Bible thumping troglodyte because that's all they ever see portrayed in the media with this accent. So I know what I'm going to do. And it's funny because I ended up literally doing this, but I was like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to start going out in public and being just as loud and crazy and redneck acting, but I'm going to say a bunch of super liberal shit just to try to balance the scales a little bit. Like that was like the setup for the joke. And then I would literally just say, like one was like, my F-150's got a bumper sticker on the back of it that says my other truck's a Prius, like shit like that. Like jokey things like that. They were like, and I never said the words liberal redneck, but it was a bit that I would do. And what might surprise people now is that it always worked. It didn't matter what room I was in. I could be in the most red ass comedy club in the South, right? And it worked because at that point in time, people could hear that and not get their backs. Like people at that point in time, even if it was a completely conservative room, they'd be like, what a silly notion that is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's a funny idea for a character, a liberal redneck, you know? They didn't take it so fucking seriously. So like it would work everywhere. So I really was not that concerned about starting any kind of goddamn wildfire or nothing, or even it being it was more like a comedic exercise to me. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the more I looked at it. I didn't foresee what has happened both in my life, but also just the country, So it was more of just, like I said, like another comedy thing that I was trying, and then it became the thing that I am defined by.
Yeah. It was before people they dug their heels in so much that they forgot about satire and nuance. Like you could have actually been a conservative making those jokes and it's just as funny and they'll meet you there. But now it's like, if they even get on both sides, if somebody gets the tiniest whiff of, oh no, this person's one of them, it's not funny. Fuck you for even making that joke.
And I hate that. And you're right, it is on both sides. But like, so one of the guys who's a good friend of mine is a comedian who opens for me. He's from a small town in Georgia and his dad is a preacher, right? Like I think a Southern Baptist preacher, and he's super MAGA, right?
I'm assuming he's not.
He's a blue sheep, this guy. Again, comedian, very funny comedian. I would shout him out, but I'm about to say this about it. I'm bringing his dad into it, so I won't say his name. But anyway, he told me once when we were working together one weekend, and I just put like a new act together, and it's the first time he saw it. And we were having lunch the next day, and he told me, he's like, dude, I was sitting back there watching your new act last night, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, I think my dad would love like 90% of this,
Right.
And I was like, right, I know. And what's frustrating me about that is I feel like it wasn't all that long ago where like, and I still think this is the way it should be. If you assess something as 90% great and 10% I didn't care for that 10%. That's a good fucking
comedy show.
Yeah, right. If someone's got a 90% tomato score or whatever, that's fantastic. It's like, and if that's the way it was treated, I'd be totally fine with it. But we all know that it isn't. It's like you said, it could be 99%. It doesn't matter if you say one thing that makes them realize oh, they're on the other team, then it's like, this guy sucks. He's not funny. Fuck everything. And you're right. People on the left do the same shit. And I don't get that. And I really don't think I'm a hypocrite either, because I can watch comedians sets.
Yeah.
And I can think something is funny or is a good bit, regardless of how much other right wing shit they have or whatever. You know?
Exactly. Like there's comedians who are definitely right wing. And of course, I do not support their politics, but I can watch their stuff and find the humor in it because they're still humans. I think it's the psychological. Well, you probably studied this. It's that psychological, like social phenomenon where it's like, if I feel safe, I'm much more willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. You could even say like, screw my mother and all this, and I'm finding it funny because I know you don't actually hate me. But the second that I actually think you might be my enemy, you could be nice to me and I'll still be like, what the fuck did that mean? And that is now happening on a social scale. It's insane. It's so scary. And we all fall victim to it. I can prejudge the shit out of people. Actually, when I first started paying attention to your stuff, I thought you were the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were playing a liberal character,
right,
making fun of that person. And it took me like 3 videos to be like, oh no, that's just who this guy is.
That's funny. The thing you were saying, the phenomenon you just described, I used to benefit from that greatly as a young comedian because I started out in the South, Knoxville specifically, but Knoxville, Nashville, Atlanta, where at Chattanooga, whatever. And other comedians used to say to me all the time, they were like, I cannot believe the shit that you get away with on stage.
Yeah.
Because I would have like, I'd have abortion jokes. I'd have like jokes about the Bible and shit, all this type of stuff. And it would work in these. And again, and I always thought, and the other comedians would say the same thing. I think it's because I sounded like that. Like you said, they felt safe or whatever. They were like, oh, this guy's, one of us. So like if I'd been like a New York comedian with a New York doing any of that shit, they would have been like, fuck this guy.
No.
But they let me do it. But like, I don't think they would anymore, even if they don't know who I am, just because of the way that, like you said, as soon as you even bring those things up. So I'm saying it's just obviously things are so different for everyone, all of us. But it's like, the other thing that's different is when I was doing all that at that point in time and that point in place, that shit was like punk rock,
Oh, yeah. It was
you know
edgy.
What I mean? Yeah, that was edgy in a good way. And now in the comedy world, it's like, that's fucking woke pandering shit. And it's edgy to be pro the authoritarian government or whatever. Like that, what I mean? Which I don't.
Yeah.
I do not understand that logic at all. But anyway.
Do you feel like you were born funny? Was it a defense mechanism growing up? Was it something you had to learn to laugh at? Like you were talking about being in this town, like where do you think it came from?
I mean, I think a combination of all those things. First of all, a thing that hasn't been mentioned yet,
your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, right?
Obviously, yes. Won't be super surprising to people, I'm sure, but I was a fat kid also in this destitute town. I think a lot of fat kids are funny. So that was part of it. Defense mechanism, like you said, there was definitely an element of like laugh to keep from crying thing because everything was so fucked up.
Was there an expectation for you to be funny as the fat kid? Because sometimes people get
not
pushing
like
those
you're
roles.
thinking, because I also was the smart kid. Like I was primarily
you're just breaking all of the social norms. You're the smart, fat, educated,
fat nerd is a
non-religious.
But yeah, I was my primary identity in my school was I was the smart kid in my school, and I always say now, because it's true, is I realize now looking back that that's like being the straightest guy to Cher concert or something. Like it's not, but the number one thing about me as a young man is that, and I've said this a million times, but like I graduated high school and left my hometown at 18, fully believing that I was fucking Goodwill Hunting, like a prodigy. And, I'm not. And I had like a full blown quarter life crisis over coming to terms with all that in my like 20s. But, that's how I was as a kid. So like,
oh yeah,
that was my main thing, but I also was a fat kid. So what I'm saying is there was no expectation of like, oh, he'll fart and fall down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
Like
you
when
were
I
getting
feel like,
laughed at.
What I feel like when you say like, usually the fat kid's expected to be funny, it's in a like humiliate yourself, take your shirt off and fucking jiggle type shit. No, not like that. It was always I was always a smart ass. It was always words like comebacks, that type of shit. Wit, I guess, was always the type of humor that I kind of had. But I think because of the whole laugh to keep from crying thing, a lot of my friends are, hilarious. My sister's hilarious. Like a lot of these people, and I don't know if it's because the town was so fucked or what, but I think it at least helped.
Yeah.
So I grew up around a lot of funny people too. Shit, my dad was hilarious. My gay uncle's super funny. So,
Well, now that you're like a professional comedian, do you find people trying to impress you with, because I have comedian friends and there is no like, that's my thing, there's never that.
No.
But I think some people are trying to impress, like, I want him to think I'm funny. And then that means something. It's like humor is unique to all of us,
Yeah.
Like, do you have people trying to like show you I can be funny like you?
The thing that pops into my head, and every comedian is familiar with this, is somebody like they'll tell you some anecdote or some observation they had, and they're like, you can use that if you want or whatever. Like, they'll like give you bits or whatever, and they don't know that it's either like a super hack premise that's been done a million times, or it's like there's no way that's going to work because no one in the crowd knows your Aunt Tammy that you just told the story about or whatever it is, But it's more of that type of thing than. I think sometimes I've had people say before in comments or whatever, that type of thing, if they had met me and like cracked me up, that they were like, whatever, that was cool to them. And I guess would be to anybody that's a fan of a comedian. But I just, in the moment, it's just like you said, they said something funny or did something funny. So I just laughed. I definitely do not think of it. I don't think of it in those terms at all. Like, you're not going to try to make me laugh, are you? That's what not at all. It's just, like you said, it's just a human thing.
Right. Yeah. You're not going around there like judging them like it's Hell's Kitchen and you're dining at McDonald's, right?
No.
Who was your inspiration? You had mentioned Eddie Izzard. Were you like a George Carlin fan or Richard Pryor, or any of those guys who did both like satire and like social awareness kind of stuff?
Of course, yes to both of those. They both came a little later for me though, because their peak had been before my time. So I got into comedy first and then went back and revisited them. So Eddie Izzard was huge, but the main one, the story I always tell, because I know that it's what happened, was we've already talked about my dad, like I said, more open-minded guy or whatever, single father. I watched. So he ran a video store. I knew I wanted to do
that's so cool.
Show business shit or whatever because of that, but I didn't know what specifically. And in 1998, I was 12 years old. Me and my dad watched Chris Rock's Bigger and Blacker when it came out. And we watched that together live. And that's the special that has Chris Rock's bit about like, everybody always talks about how great mama is, mama this, mama that. Nobody gives a fuck about daddy, and he's like, all daddy gets is the big piece of chicken. That's like that whole bit. Pretty iconic. And my dad was just like, losing his shit throughout that whole thing. And that was literally the moment that I was like, okay, that specifically, I think I want to try that. So Chris Rock will forever be my personal number one because he's literally the guy that inspired me to want to be a comedian.
And you connected with your dad over it, which makes it that much better.
Yeah.
Right?
I've heard a lot of comedians tell stories on podcasts and stuff that involve some version of that, seeing their dad laugh at a thing or making their dad laugh at a thing or something in that side. There's definitely, at least with like male comedians, I think it's a pretty common anecdote, a version of that. But so him, I think, again, in keeping with my dad, a guy my dad was a huge fan of, who's now he's like a conservative, but I don't think he's full bore MAGA. I don't think he was more of like a post 9/11 conservative. But in the 90s, my dad was a huge fan of Dennis Miller. And I think that Dennis Miller, I think it's inarguable really that Dennis Miller was like an influence on me. If you really think about it, he obviously doesn't have the accent or anything like that at all, but he was verbose. He was a big vocabulary guy. He did rants and shit. He was all about like words and the way to work and stringing words together and stuff and all so I think Dennis Miller was a big
the
influence.
wordplay. Now that I wouldn't have thought of that.
Right.
You don't hear his name a lot anymore, which is sad because he was brilliant.
Yeah.
And I always saw him as a moderate, or like I saw him as a liberal conservative. I think you're right. I don't think he's full-blown MAGA. I think he's a classic conservative.
Right. Yeah.
That now that you say it.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? Yeah.
Dennis Miller, man.
Right.
Have you gotten to meet any of your heroes?
I've met Adam Sandler, Zach Galifianakis, met John Mulaney, Nick Kroll. I've met Sarah Silverman, but I've not met Chris Rock or Dennis Miller or any of those guys. But I've met a lot of them, and they've all been cool. You know,
is there as much credit and respect? Because I know, as any industry changes, there's always, these young guys don't get it. But now that people realize you cannot not have a social media presence and make it any of these businesses.
Yeah.
Are we at a place now where there's the acceptance of that? Oh yeah, if you're doing it big there, that doesn't mean like you suck and you're just a novice.
It's still a little weird. That's an astute observation of yours though, because that hasn't come up yet. But another huge thing for me when I first went viral in 2016 was that so in addition to becoming like a pariah in my hometown for the political part, being like a viral internet guy was like massively looked down upon in the comedy world in 2016. Like you were not taken seriously at all.
Right.
And the thing is, I kind of got it because like I was part of this big crop of people, and I won't name any of their names or whatever, who had that happen around the same time and started suddenly headlining comedy clubs and shit out of nowhere. And all of the rest of them had never even done stand-up. Like they got a following. Some manager found them, was like, you could sell tickets, right? And you can make money selling tickets. And they're like, well, I'll just do that. Yeah. And now they're taking weekends away from real comics and they don't know what they're doing and they're not good.
And I'm sure they all fizzled out by now.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. The ones that I'm aware of, but I was always super defensive about it because and this is not that long, but still I'd been doing stand-up for 6 years at that point, very seriously. I had a manager in Los Angeles. I was in NBC's talent development program, and like I was submitting writing packets for jobs and all this stuff. I'd been a semifinalist at a national comedy competition that NBC held and all this shit. Like I was like serious about it and had been doing it for 6 years. And I was just like, I don't feel like I should be lumped in with these other motherfuckers, you know?
Yeah, but you're like, I agreed that they suck.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, I get why you don't like that, but I'm different though. But they didn't know that. I mean, some people did, like Southern comedians and shit did, but a ton of like the LA and New York people at that time, they didn't know who I was. Right. And so like, they didn't know. So that was like a huge thing for me too. But you're right. Now, 10 years later, I mean, dude, people don't think. Again, now it's like you have to do it. Like, and everyone understands that. Now it's like if you are even going to attempt to do this shit, you're going to have to make TikToks and Instagram reels and stuff, or you don't have a shot in hell. Yeah. And so like now that it's just accepted as something you have to do, that has kind of gone away. Plus, I've stuck around now for 10 years, so that's part of it too.
Well, I mean, they can't judge you based on that because you're actually a touring comic.
Right, and have been for a decade at this point.
Right.
So.
Like you, I kind of get it. I kind of see
why it is still a thing.
Because there's the people who like we put in the real work and we understand the industry, and then there's some guy who just happens to make funny videos, and that is not the same.
It is still a thing, but now it's not automatic. Like now people will look at it on an individual, like a case by case basis and be like, do they just have a bunch of followers, but also suck? Well, then fuck them. Right. Or, okay, they got a bunch of followers, but they're actually good or they're legit. Then, okay, then, whereas back then it was like, oh, you're a follower person. No. Yeah. And it's not like that anymore. So
is the comedy world still pretty cliquey?
Oh, I mean, I would way more so now, I would say, with all the whole like, Austin Rogan sphere contingent thing that's happened. God. There's like a comedy civil war kind of happening right now, which is weird. Obviously, that was it was always like cliquey, but not like this. It's like, just like everything, it's fucking, divided now.
Actually, that's a great segue. I think we need to talk about that. The world has changed. Most industries have changed. My world in video production and everything. I mean, everything, the model has changed. But then on top of it, you have the human element of like the social discourse and divide. So comedy is now, I know there's little factions throughout, but like the main one is we're not allowed to be funny anymore. People are too easily offended and woke. And then there's everyone else going, we've always had to play within the boundaries of what was socially acceptable. Like, we could be edgy. I know where you fall in it, but do you have people who absolutely see you as one or the other? Like, fuck this guy. He's definitely not one of us.
Oh, I mean, I'm definitely not in the Austin Rogan sphere camp, like for sure. It's not nothing I've ever walked away from. I'm not invited to it. I'm saying, but I'm definitely not part of that.
You never
and
got invited on like Kill Tony or any of those things?
No. And the thing is, I don't, actually, my position on that has always been that I've always said that I would go just about anywhere, meaning in terms of podcasts and talk to whoever, because to me, it feels like backing down not to or something.
Right.
But go there and like stick to my guns type of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm not losing any sleep over not doing it. I'm
Yeah.
not really a fan and like of the show itself. But anyway, yeah, I think a lot of those people saw an avenue for, more pronounced success in the comedy world and, grift, gravy train type thing.
Yeah.
Just like it's been in so many other areas.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of them are fully legit about it.
Yeah.
So it just depends. And then you have, the people that, from my perspective, trying to keep it real about all that, like Mark Maron and Anthony Jeselnik and
God, yeah.
Stavros and guys like that who are like, this shit is stupid. So
yeah, I think the world was already in the transition as you were coming into like professional comedy, it sounds like. But have you noticed there a change beyond what we talked about with like the division and people getting easily offended and just the nature of social media? Have you noticed any other changes in the industry as a comedian of like things that get harder or easier or anything in that realm?
Well, yeah. Well, there's a lot more inside baseball stuff we could kind of get into if you're talking about like trying to get something made as like a TV or a script, a movie or something. Like but you got to have IP, it's got to be based on something. They don't want to do original ideas anymore. Yada, yada. All that stuff is a thing. All the stuff that's changed with streaming. There's less opportunities, period. There's more, but less, they're less like feasible, and the way the contracts and just the systems work and everything has changed a lot in a way that kind of sucks.
It's predatory.
Yes. And there's all that. And then in the comedy world, when I first got viral and stuff, a question I got frequently was like, at the time it was like, is it possible to be funny if you're conservative? Do you know what I mean? They're like, are there any funny conservative people? Because when I, as a comedy fan growing up my whole life and early on when I became a comedian, it was just like assumed that there were plenty of comedians who didn't talk about politics at all or nothing like that. But they were either that or they were what people now would call woke, I feel like, which is to say like, talking about social, like the right always tries to claim George Carlin and shit now. It's like,
no, hell no.
Right. And so, and that was just assumed. And there would be like, are there any examples of like, funny conservative? Like that was like the stand, that's where the comedy world was at the time. And I never in a million years thought it would get to a place where all the most successful and popular like comics want to sell out the biggest rooms and all that shit are all like definitively right wing or whatnot. Like, so that has been the craziest shit to me. I do, again, inside the comedy world, kind of a civil war, which I agree with a lot of people that are like, this is stupid. Like the drama about it all is so fucking dumb. But but I do think the pendulum might be swinging. I think there might be a bit of a pushback happening culturally. I think some people might be getting over all that generally or starting to see through it, but I don't know. We'll see.
What would be good is to have like a public discourse on it where we can actually learn from it, because it's not that, this whole, we can't make jokes anymore, we can't be funny. It's like, no, it goes back to that social dynamic we talked about. You're punching down.
Right.
When he made fun of a gay guy, it was funny because his friend's gay and he's not actually saying, I hate gay people or they're broken. You're saying it and you actually mean, I hate these people. Mm-hmm. That's punching down, and they're already a group that's oppressed and fighting for rights that states are every day trying to take away from them. So like, if we could have that discussion, we could tell them, we could figure out why you guys feel like you can't be funny. You can, but if you're coming from a place of hate, it's not where comedy is based in. It's not based in hate. It's based on you guys making unique and hilarious observations of our fucked up world.
Right. Yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, yeah, that was always like the purpose of comedy for me, or one of them. It's also, there's this thing that pretty much every comedian loves to fucking say or point out. It's like, in medieval times, the only person who was allowed to make fun of the king was the jester, right? And that's a popular thing amongst comedians because that was like the idea. It was like, that's what comedy was really for and about, was like calling out the bullshit. You know what I mean? but not just like, but yeah, now it's about just fucking kicking people while they're down, apparently, because it's more lucrative to do so, I guess, or whatever. And then talk about, and then say everybody else is pandering. Talk about how you can't say anything and you've been canceled from like a fucking $20 million special on the biggest platform in the world. And then, you know, and you're not allowed to joke about anything anymore and all that. It's just, and it's like Mark Maron said, he was like, you know, okay, but you guys you won, like it happened, you won. Like
you won.
Like, so are the jokes going to stop? Are you going to joke about something else now? You know, like you were so worried. The whole premise of all that was like, this shit is taking over our culture.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's definitely not. Like you guys have taken over the culture. So can you shut the fuck up about it now? But
that was
not.
brilliant. And it's hard to not like Mark Maron because he's one of the best of the best. So even the guys who disagree with him are probably watching it like shit.
No, yeah, he's so good. His last special was so good. He did all those guys I mentioned earlier. I do shows at Largo sometimes, like Trae Crowder and friends at Largo's iconic venue here in LA. Mark Maron did the last one that I did not that long ago, and he just had a special come out. Didn't have really anything ready yet.
Yeah,
did like 15 minutes and was just, you know, incredible the whole time. Just because he's like been doing it for so long and he's super good at it. It's like you say, he's kind of undeniable. So yeah. I told him backstage, I was like, I'm sure you're getting this a lot, but I've really been appreciating what you've been doing out there. And he's like, what I've been doing? He's like, I've been taking the fucking hit. That's what I've been doing. Fuck. And he just like walked. It was very, very Mark Maron.
He is carrying the world on his shoulders, I think, some days.
But yeah, no, I'm a big fan.
All of you guys are. I mean, that you're putting yourselves out there. I know you see yourself as a comedian first and foremost, obviously. Do you think that the people who know you from the internet see you as an activist first or a comedian first?
I mean, I think a lot of them definitely it's the former. I think a lot of them that have followed me for a long time know that about me and so at least oblige me or whatever. But plenty of people, it's definitely the former. I mean, I still get people all the time who like love me, big fans of mine, who like come to a show and will say to me some version afterwards. They'll say to me some version of like, I love your videos and everything. It's like, I wasn't sure how this was going to be, but like, you're good at this, you know? I was like, yeah, no, I know.
Wow.
Like,
that's the highest form of compliment.
But it's like, yeah, no, this is like what I actually do, you know, but.
Well, I'm familiar with your comedy. Do people come in thinking it's all going to be like Daily Show, like making topical bits and all?
Not everyone, but yes, like that definitely happens. Sure. And I'd say it's at least equally split. You know, usually people are like pleasantly surprised that it's not, because I think that makes them, they're almost like, even if they like me doing that, they're like, I don't know if I can take an hour of that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I would like that either.
Right.
So they're like pleasantly surprised when it isn't that. But then sometimes there are people who I think they expect that. And when it's not that, they're like, oh, but I really feel strongly that if you like the videos that I make, I think you will like my stand-up too, because it is different, but it's very much like in the ballpark and on brand. Yeah. Of course it is, because it's me doing both of them.
Well, I think they're two different vehicles for comedy, but for two different purposes, in my opinion, because you have the short, quick, witty, topical things. I go to that, and I think a lot of people do, for catharsis. Oh my God, why is no one seeing how insane it is that ICE is killing people? Well, here's Trae telling me and saying all the things I'm thinking and putting a hilarious spin on it. So I feel like, oh God, I'm not alone. But I don't want 90 minutes of that at a show, because escapism is a lot of what entertainment and comedy are for. And if you did that, I don't think it would have been.
No, I know. Well, so right after the election, especially, I was getting a lot of people being like, I was kind of worried, even though I love you, I was kind of worried. I didn't know if I could take an hour of just talking about this shit and freaking the fuck out about it internally the whole time. Because you're right. They do come there to like, at least at some point for my crowds, it's both. They come there a little bit to hear like hell yeah, fuck this shit, but also to just have a good time and not have to think about it or whatever. Yeah. And I think that I, provide that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's impossible not to talk about it, because it's like, how can we sit there and talk about, picking out flowers for our front yard when the house is burning down? You have to at least acknowledge the house burning down, and that's how some people know you. But I think it's great. I think it also shows a level of objectivity where you're like, this doesn't consume every waking minute of mine, and we can all just laugh about everything that has nothing to do with sides and politics and division. And that, to me, that is so freaking important, because I've gone to comics where the whole thing is fuck Trump. And it's like, I don't want to spend that much time talking or thinking about the guy.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I've very much agree. Yeah.
I think we're in this new era that we've been talking about actually for 20 years. Journalism's dying. I actually went to journalism school. So like we were talking about it dying as we're going through the school. Luckily, I wasn't trying to be a newspaper writer or anything. But over the last 20 years, more and more people have gotten their information from comedians.
Yeah.
And I think that's a double-edged sword for obvious reasons. But is it also kind of like you guys are picking up the ball and carrying it down the field, hoping the other guys are going to come back? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I definitely hope the other guys come back, but that's not the reason that I'm doing it. I don't think about it in that way. No, I mean, people that's another thing people tell me pretty frequently at shows. They're like, at this point, like you're pretty much, basically my only news source, because I have those videos, but I also do a weekly podcast about politics. So that's an hour of it every week. And they're like, that's pretty much all. I can't handle the rest of it, so I just get it from you. And I always tell them, I'm like, you really shouldn't do that. I was like, I mean, keep watching my stuff, but like, I am not comfortable with being the news. I get the things that I say from the news. I try to be like smart about it, which there's no media literacy or anything now, and also that's fucking huge problem. But I think I'm not going to say it's the biggest issue, but it's definitely up there. The death of old American media and standards, journalistic standards, everything, and the way it all works now. And that you can just live entirely in your own reality, if you're choosing. And it's it's a major problem. And I don't really see a way out of that part. So
yeah, it's really sunny and happy.
Yeah.
You're right. I talk about it all the time on the show. Media literacy, I think, is our number one problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because if people knew what information was, what opinion was, what was factual, what was accusatory, like all of these things, we'd be in a better place. But when somebody can literally argue with you that the earth is flat for an hour and a half, where do you go from there?
It's like you said to me, I see ice kill people, and I'm like, how could anyone be okay with this? But like, people like literally believe that they're only it's just criminals, drug dealers, whatever. It's just riffraff people that are making this country worse that ICE is rounding up and shipping out, and if there's some collateral damage, hey, they wouldn't have been a target if they weren't a bad person anyway. Like that type of, like, they really do believe that shit. There's a certain percentage that are just like on board, but a lot of people though, that's the thing I've tried to improve upon in recent years, is like trying to think about that aspect of it. Anytime something comes up where I'm just like flabbergasted at, like, how, but you have to, and trying to realize like, okay, but this is what they actually think about. This is what their opinion of this is like, they really do believe this. I believe the exact opposite, but they believe that as much as I believe this. And of course, I'm fully convinced that I'm right and they're wrong, but they believe it the same way I do. So they think I'm fucking crazy,
Yeah, but you can back everything with like logic and usually data and science. And there's where the difference is. I'm not saying everything can be proved by that, but if you're like, look, my moral code is this, but when you have somebody banging the drum of I'm a Christian, and then there's calling this person woke, and you're like, then Jesus was woke.
Right. Well, but they can't, I mean, many of them can't. They just say what they've heard, and they can't back it up with anything. But that's part of the problem with the way media works, and what we were talking about earlier is like a lot of them can back it up with something too. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
They can find
sources
and shit that are like, no, see, it's Fox News said, or wherever said, they have things they can point to.
You're right.
So anyway,
you're absolutely right. So do you fear for retaliation because we're actually seeing a crackdown of that from an authoritarian government?
Okay, I was about to say, so you mean from the government?
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, no, so I feel crazy sometimes when I say this, but I mean, it crosses my mind. Like at the very least, like a fan mentioned me the other day, so about, where you should go, and it was some other country or something. And I was like, I don't think I'm leaving this country and coming back anytime soon is what I mean. Because I don't think anything would really happen to me, but I don't want to get detained at the fucking airport for 14 hours just because it's funny for them or whatever. Like, that's the level of worry I have about it right now. Do I think it could devolve to the first thing I tweeted after it got projected that Donald Trump was going to win the last election that night, on election night, the first thing I tweeted or posted on social media was, well, I'm going to keep running my mouth until they throw me in the gulag. I can promise you that much, right? So that was the first. So, I mean, like, yeah, I've thought about it. I'm not in a place where I genuinely fear that yet. Do I think that is possible? Yeah, I think it's possible.
Unchecked, that's not that far down the line.
Yeah, right. And that's why I'm, one of the reasons I'm glad that I stayed in California, once this becomes the free nation of California, whatever, hopefully they won't deport me back to Tennessee.
Wasn't that a comedian where they pulled them aside and said, your videos online, you make fun of Trump a lot?
There might have been more than one guy, but I know there was a streamer called Hassan. Do you know Hassan Piker? He's like a progressive Twitch streamer, but a hugely, hugely popular one. That happened to him, I know for a fact.
Yeah.
He was just flying back into the country. But he also is a brown guy. He's like Turkish or whatever. So, I mean,
you're safe.
That's an important point. But they looked up his shit and they fucked with him for like 14, 16 hours. And then they let him go. But yeah.
So what's next for you? Is there something on your list of like achievements you want to do with your career and your comedy that you're still aiming for, or are you just living life and enjoying it?
Well, I don't. I'm not trying to enjoy it. I don't know, but there's a ton of things I still haven't done that I want to. I mean, I've had 5 different television pilots that didn't make it to air. I'd like to get one of those over the finish line eventually. Wrote a feature script, a movie script. I'd love to get that made. At least one of those. I just want to get something made. So that is a big goal of mine eventually. Me and a friend of mine he's a comic book writer. We're working on a comic book right now, which is very early stages. So I don't want to say anything about it, the specifics of it, but it's going to be it's a genre. So it's going to be like a horror comic or whatever.
Are you in the comic? Or are you just helping kind of write it?
No, me and him are writing it because I mean because I'm all I've written 2 books, all those. Like I said, I write these scripts. Like, I'm a writer. At times I consider myself like a writer comedian. Like, even as a comedian, I'm like a writer.
Yeah.
So there's a comedian friend of mine, Matt Kirshen. I don't know if this is his thing or if he got this from somewhere else, but I heard him say it was like every comedian is either a performer who has to learn how to write or a writer who has to learn how to perform, and I'm definitely the latter. So a comic book is something I haven't written but would like to, and we have an idea for one that we're doing, so I'm excited about seeing that through. I've got an Audible original. One of those pilots became an Audible original, so like a radio play, essentially, like an audio only drama, multiple episode thing that's should be coming out in the next few months. I was recording it yesterday and today, and we're recording it next week too. So that should be happening and coming out before too long. So, keeping the plate spinning. I call it, keep pushing that boulder,
Yeah. So where can people keep an eye on all these things to see up and coming events and tours, dates, and everything? It's
Trae Crowder, TRAE Crowder, at any of your preferred social media platforms. I post about things on there. And then also TraeCrowder.com is the website where all my tour dates are listed. And so anything I do will be put. So whatever your preferred social platform is, if you follow me on there, I'll post about any of this shit on there. And you can get the tickets from the website, TraeCrowder.com.
Are you coming anywhere near Cleveland anytime this year?
So I do
don't say Dayton. I'm not going to Dayton.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. Well, Dayton was just but no, you're right, because I do a run through Ohio every September. But this past year, it did not include Cleveland because the routing did not work out with the comedy club in Cleveland that I go to. Hopefully next year, Cleveland, generally it's like, and I'm not saying in this order, it's in whatever order makes geographical sense, but it's like, Dayton, Columbus, Toledo, Cincinnati, and Cleveland in whatever order, like in that like horseshoe kind of shape or whatever. So hopefully next September, because every September I'm in Ohio. It may or may not include Cleveland.
Well, if it doesn't, we're happy to drive to come see you, because I haven't gotten to see you live. I watch your specials, and like I said, I've been a fan since 2016. You said what I was thinking and made it even funnier. And I mean, I know you know this, and you don't need me to blow smoke up your ass, but like that is really important. That was a mental health survival tool through the pandemic. Like, so you actually provided people with mental health, like release. And like, sometimes, like you said, as the little fat kid in you, it's like, sometimes you got to laugh to keep you from crying. And you gave a lot of people reasons to laugh. So thank you for doing that.
Well, you're going to give me the vapors. It's too sweet, but yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
I like to ask a random question at the end. And so yours is, you have that trademark, like Tennessee, Kentucky accent. If you could choose any other accent that you wish you had been brought up with, what would it be?
I'd say probably a Scottish brogue. I think I can emulate it. I can sort of put it on if I want to, but it's not real. So if I had, on an Australian maybe, something like that, that one goes over well. You can be a fun guy, party guy, people like that, Probably one of those, or just any version of British. I was always kind of like a bit of an Anglophile, actually.
See, and you said you don't have a great vocabulary. People don't use those words. That was amazing.
Yeah.
We just went there. Now you can go to thegoingtherepodcast.com for links to all the podcast platforms, our socials, and of course, YouTube. While you're at it, give us a rating, share with a friend, and subscribe.
This podcast is brought to you in part by its host and Frame One Media, in association with Kaylee Williams, Joe Calley, and Bobby Thomas.